Hello, my name is Dr. Marvin DeJear, and on behalf of the Greater Des Moines Partnership, we welcome you to our first Future Ready DSM webinar to discuss internships and programming for college students and college graduates. Talent is at the top of everyone's priority list right now, and the Iowa Business Council pledging 30,000 internships, apprenticeships, and externships by 2025 to the state of Iowa's Future Ready Iowa initiative, seeking to have 70% of working age adults to have a post-secondary credential by 2025. To our very own Future Ready DSM, 75 by 25, to have 75% of working age adults to have a post-secondary credential by 2025 here for the Greater Des Moines region. Everyone is working to solve our talent issues for the future workforce of Iowa. We'll be hosting a series of webinars focusing on workforce best practices and programs you can participate in to help you find the talent you're looking for. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by experts and professionals representing businesses who will share insights on how you can be successful in your endeavors and create a meaningful opportunity for college students and college graduates to participate in extra business. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists for today's discussion about internships and programming for college students and college graduates. I have the pleasure of having Sidney Pezley, our Director of Talent and Education Programs here at the Greater Des Moines Partnership. I'm joined by Tyler Kohler, who's the Internship Program Coordinator at Principal. I'm also joined by Vivian Lovenrack, Training and Systems Specialist, Human Resources at Bankers Trust. And also joined by Stacey Kale, Vice President of Human Resources at Merchants Bonding Company. We'll go ahead and jump right into the questions. And we'll start with Stacey. And if you could just introduce yourself and give us some background on your role at Merchants Bonding Company, Stacey.
Sure. Good morning. Stacey Kale, Human Resources, Vice President of Human Resources at Merchants Bonding. We started our internship program about 3 years ago of revitalizing it. So love to share more throughout the questions, but I'll pause there.
All right. And Tyler, you can introduce yourself and give us a little background.
My name is Tyler Kohler. Good morning, everyone. I am the Internship Program Coordinator at Principal Financial Group, and we have an internship program of over 200 interns every year, and it's been going strong for a long time. So really excited to speak with you all today.
And Vivian.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vivian Lovenrack. I am the Training and Systems Specialist at Bankers Trust. We've had our internship program for over 20 years here, started by the great Sharon Gaddy Hannon, and now, I just get to keep moving it along, making it better every year.
All right, and Sidney.
Morning, everyone. I'm here at the Greater Des Moines Partnership in charge of Director Talent and Education Programs. So I work with interns, run a summer programming series called DSM Intern Connection, which is for interns not just here at the partnership, but throughout the metro. And then I also work with young professionals. There is a liaison for Young Professional Connection, known as YPC here in the metro. And then I'm also the program director for the DSM Fellowship Connection. So I work with students and young professionals in a lot of capacities.
Okay. All right. So we know each of your companies, as you all stated, engages with college students. What value does your company believe in and see from giving college students and graduates opportunities like these? And Stacey, we'll start with you.
Sure. When we revitalized our program 3 years ago, there were two main objectives: to bring more diversity into the organization and to create a pipeline of candidates. Merchants Bonding Company is a very niche market that only focuses on surety bonds, which most students don't go to college to learn about surety bonds and have a career in it. So it's to introduce them to what is the surety industry. I think the benefits and the value that has been brought through that is just this past summer alone, we had interns from 4 different countries. And it was wonderful to have the different cultural aspects and learn different work styles within our organization, not alone the hiring. We've already hired 2 from this past summer, and we're getting ready to hire a 3rd. So we're really excited about that.
Okay, and Tyler?
Yeah, similar to Stacey, our goals is also to increase diversity and, bring a pipeline to our, early talent in Principal. And the value that we've been seeing so far is being able to have our interns network with other people outside of the state of Iowa. and seeing a lot of top talent come in just because we've had to pivot into a virtual world and having remote opportunities where before we were mostly, required all of our interns to be on campus and here in Des Moines, where now we have remote opportunities, and that helps build our pipeline even greater than it has before. And I think the value for us is, seeing these interns succeed and convert to full-time or want to be a repeat intern.
Okay, and Vivian.
Yeah, similar to Stacey and Tyler, it is a great recruiting pipeline. We tend to hire on interns for both part-time and full-time positions. But the first thing that we always notice is the energy that they bring into our environment. They have a fresh perspective. They're always so eager to learn and jump into projects. So it just helps us to rethink and reframe how we do things. And it's just, it's a great creative kind of safe space for them to be in.
Okay, and Sidney, how about your views around this topic?
Yeah, so my perspective is a little different because I work with interns that are not just here at the partnership, but working at any company across the Des Moines Metro. And similar to what everybody else has said, when we started the DSM Intern Connection, which is formerly known as Seize the City, the idea was that retention pipeline building, and that interns were here working over the summer. And what we really wanted was to connect them to each other, so they had a great time to kind of show off Des Moines. They would get involved and try out some things that maybe they weren't going to do on their own, and then provide some of those professional development and networking opportunities, because we know that for students, who they know is important to them in building their own personal and professional networks. And so they would build some of those relationships and ideally come back post-grad as they're looking for full-time opportunities. So that's kind of where the program got started. Everything pivoted in the midst of the pandemic, but that's really just the vision for it, is to really build some of that excitement and engagement among the interns and college-age students while they're here working.
Thank you. So some of you highlighted, of course, from the internship opportunities you provided and some of the programming that these college students go on to become full-time employees at your particular organizations. Outside of course, the success of having a full-time employee join your team, what other successes or highlights have you seen from those students as they become those full-time employees, or just even participating in the programs over the time? And Stacey, we'll start with you.
Sure, a few things. One is we've partnered with the Surety and Fidelity Association of America. And again, we're trying to add diversity, not just to merchants, but to the whole industry of the surety industry. So we've partnered with them and developed a scholarship program. So any diverse interns that go through our program can also apply for a $5,000 scholarship. And happy to say 100% of those who have applied have received that. So I think that's a great benefit and helping students financially on top of a learning experience they have here.
Thank you. And Tyler.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is those who converted to full-time that have been at principal for years since they were interns. I have a new leader, and he's started as an intern, and he's been a principal for 8 years. And I think that's one of many success stories from our internship program, and something that I think principal has a lot of pride in, is seeing the longevity of our employees, and that we retain them from interns all the way till maybe they even retire, which is awesome.
Thank you. Vivian.
One success story I can think of is Cuckoo, and I don't know if some of you know. I think Sidney, you know. Marvin, you might know, because he went through our internship program. He was hired on as a full-time employee, and now he is a participant in our Des Moines Fellowship program as well. And he is just soaring and thriving, and he continues to reach out to the community, and just a remarkable young person. And it's people like that we're trying to bring in to our community to help it thrive.
Thank you. And Sidney, I know it's a little different for you, but what successes have you seen from your engagement through our program?
Yeah, well, I'm glad that Vivian mentioned Cuckoo, because that's somebody that had come to mind. And I think that it's exciting to see students be here for the summer or for whatever their internship experience is, and then come back for a full-time position just because they're excited and they're engaged and they're getting involved in the community. So Fuku being part of the DSM fellowship program, or others that are just volunteering their time on boards or organizations across the metro that are just really excited about building their life here. That's not just about their career. And we see a lot of that energy in that young professional demographic.
Thank you. Now, similarly, while we know there's always wins and successes, we want to make sure that we're providing insights on the entire aspect of these opportunities that you provide. So if you all could speak to a little bit more around what challenges have you encountered in hosting these programs for the students? And Stacey, we'll start with you.
Great. I think the first thing that we discovered is we hired very talented, great students who went through the work much quicker than we anticipated. So number one is making sure you have enough work and backup work if they work faster than planned. I think another thing is a lot of our leaders travel, a lot of our employees travel, and making sure they had a personal connection always. So we ended up setting up a manager and a mentor for them so that if the manager was gone, they had a secondary mentor. And then the third thing I would say is make it a community of people that guide the intern throughout the summer or the season that you have them, and not just the manager. And what I mean by that is we hired an HR intern to actually help lead the program and check in with the interns every week. I think at first you kind of need that connection, especially if your organization isn't used to having interns.
Thank you, Stacey. And Tyler.
Yeah, two challenges come to mind. The first one is, how do we keep the interns warm from when they accept the offer to when they start with us, whether that's for their co-op, or most of our interns start in the summer. So we usually end our recruitment season about October. So how do we keep them warm from October to May? And we've realized that interns are still looking, even when they accept our internship, they're still looking. And a lot of the bigger companies that we compete with, the Googles, the Apple, the Amazons, they have a longer recruitment process than we do. And so getting those renegs is not fun, and something that we've had to learn. How do we keep them warm? Another thing is, how do we help interns to network with each other, being virtual and in person? I think that's a big challenge that we have found, and that interns have found, that they feel like they don't have enough in networking between each other and with other leaders outside of their own teams. And so that's something that we've been working through, especially for this incoming class of 2022, is how to improve those two things.
Thank you. And Vivian.
I think similar to what Stacey mentioned earlier, one challenge that we tend to face in the beginning of each year when starting the program is a balancing of the workload for them. They do tend to work a lot quicker, but as a bank, we usually have a lot of compliance and regulatory trainings that they need to complete first. All employees need to complete, and interns. And on top of that, they have department-specific trainings that they need to go through to learn the systems and processes. So we usually advise managers to keep their workload a little bit lighter in the beginning. So that's something that we've received feedback from all of the students, that their workload seems to be a little bit lighter. So we're trying to improve on that every year to find the perfect balance for when they start.
Okay. And Sidney.
I think one of the challenges that I have seen and heard from students as they've gone through various internship experiences is continued engagement. And whether that's while they're doing their internship experience and feeling that people are reaching out and they've got a mentor to talk to and ask questions of, or a manager that they can approach when they want to, especially in the virtual world. That's just a lot different right now. But also following that experience, a lot of companies are really great about continuing to engage those students with the hopes that they'll come back full time. And that's just something that students value a lot, and they appreciate those conversations, even if they're really casual. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily a challenge. It's just something that we're learning to do differently now, and I think is going to be exciting to see continue, and that students really value.
Thank you. So you all all spoke to the day-to-day responsibilities that you provide for the students as they participate. what other sort of programming or networking opportunities do you offer the students? And then if you could also speak to why you decided to add those aspects of the programs and any benefits or challenges you've encountered. And we're kind of flip it up a little bit. So we're gonna go with Vivian first this time to kind of jump in there.
Okay, well, we have a lot of activities that we have the interns participate in each summer. We always have luncheons that include all of the supervisors and all of the interns. So networking opportunity to connect, breakfast or lunch with our CEO. They get to interview our executive committee members, our community board members. They also participate in the Partnerships Intern Connection Program. We incorporate that into our bonus opportunities for them. They also get to do a group project that they work on throughout the summer together and present on. We believe in providing a variety of these activities because we think that it'll help their growth, both professionally and personally, as well as provide interactions that they might not necessarily receive otherwise. For example, getting to have breakfast or lunch with our CEO, they go in a little bit nervous, a little intimidated, but then they come out absolutely loving it and get to find out what a CEO does, from day-to-day basis. They also love talking to our board members because most of them aren't familiar with what a board is or its purpose.
Thank you, Vivian. And Tyler.
Yeah, so we have a robust programming schedule in the summer, since that's when the bulk of all of our interns are working for us. And so we have a few executive series. So we have Dan Housen every year talk to the interns. He usually wraps up the internship program. And then, we kind of rotate the other execs every year. And so they all get a chance to meet with the interns. And then in the beginning, we have a kickoff event, which Sidney's actually going to participate in this year. And so it's an opportunity for John Couture, our chief HR officer, to come talk to them, and then Sidney to talk about some of the things happening in Des Moines over the summer, as well as an opportunity for them to actually meet each other in person all together in one space. So this is our first year we've had interns back kind of fully on campus since 2020, the wonderful pandemic hit us. Another ones are lunch and learns. And so different organizations, we have employee resource groups, which I think of as student organizations at Principal, and they come talk to us about what opportunities interns have to join them, as well as employee benefits. Interns and students don't really know or have a grasp of what employee benefits are offered. And so we have someone from that team come talk to them about what Principal offers and what to look for when they're looking for their full-time job. And so a lot of different things happening. And then we try to plan at least one social event. So we usually try to do Iowa Cubs game. That's typically very popular with our interns. So, we host that for them, as well as other events. We have cohorts. And so we have repeat interns lead those for the new interns. They go to lunch together, things like that. So a lot of different opportunities throughout the summer.
Thank you, Tyler. And Stacey.
A couple things we do. One is panels. So we have two specific panels. One is Life After College, in which we bring in a lot of our 20 and 30-some-year-olds and give them a lot of advice around that. And then the other panel we do is how do you stand out as a new employee to an organization? And that's more of our leadership. We'll do a panel with the interns. Both those are really popular. We also do a DISC personality assessment at the very beginning. I think it's important that right away we have a short period of time to be involved with our interns. And so we want right away understand their personality, their work style, so we can make it the best experience possible. We also do a volunteer day. Community service is very important to merchants, so it kind of ties back to our values. And so they get to pick what charity and what volunteer event they want to do. And then they get to spend one day, all of them together doing that. We do 3 social events, one with their manager, one with their intern, and then one with just them. So once a month, they get to spend so much money and do something social and outside of work. And that's really created very strong bonds, and I think repeat interns and hiring on. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Stacey. And Sidney, I know it's a little different for you on your end, but what can you add to that conversation as well?
Yeah, so we host the summer program series, DSM Intern Connection, and Historically, that had been a 6-session series over the summer. It usually kicks off the beginning of June with a kickoff party where interns are invited to come. We'll have food and music and just kind of introduce them to each other, to the partnership, and then to upcoming things that we know are fun that are happening over the summer. And then typically we do 3 professional development sessions, and those vary in topic year to year. In the past, we've done networking or mentorship, how to negotiate your salary or your benefits, things like that, a volunteer experience, and then an executive luncheon to wrap up the summer. And that's where we invite executives from businesses across the metro to come and have lunch with the interns, similar to what Vivian said, to really just kind of give them that experience to talk to those professionals, ask their questions, get to meet some of those people and really build out their network. Since companies have started building their own internal education series, similar to what everybody here has talked about, we've moved a little bit further from the professional development space and more towards the personal space. And so talking to students about their mental health, ways to really leverage their voices in the social justice conversations during their internship experiences. Last summer, we did a session with the Enneagram, which is very popular with students right now and was a really fun session to do. So we got great feedback on that one. We did a personal finance session. So some of those things that are still super relevant to students, maybe they're not getting in the classroom and maybe they're not getting at their workspace, but are still things that we think are really relevant for them to do. We believe in the volunteer experience also. In the past, we've worked with the Des Moines Art Festival to help them set up pre-festival. We like to take them to social things happening across the metro. So iCubs games, which are very popular. Last summer, we visited the Art Center. The Justin Favela exhibit was there. And so that was a great opportunity to really introduce them to that, which is a traveling exhibit. And then also they had lunch in the courtyard there. So maybe some things that the students wouldn't have explored on their own, we can do in small groups so we can social distance and we can do that safely and comfortably for them, but also to really move them around and just introduce them to some of those things.
Thank you, Sidney.
Yeah.
So you all have talked about the different, additional opportunities from networking to volunteering and just, meeting senior level CEO individuals from your particular companies. Based off of those experiences and some of the things you've heard back, feedback from your participants, and just thinking about this upcoming year, what are some other professional development opportunities you're thinking of maybe offering or encouraging maybe students to participate in as we get started in 2022? And we'll start with you again, Vivian.
Well, I really like the idea that Stacey had about doing their DISC profiles. We were actually thinking about adding something new this year, the 7 Habits of Effective People course. That might help them transition into their new role here, into a working experience. But we also highly encourage them to take advantage of their time here and job shadow as many people as possible, explore different business units, just so that they don't have an isolated experience in their own departments that they're assigned to. It's always a good eye-opener to kind of see how their field or their area of interest interconnects with other business units. We also encourage them to go out into the community and do volunteer workshops, also participating in our employee committee activities.
Thank you. And Tyler.
Yeah, definitely the one thing is the Principal Charity Classic that we host in the summer. We need like 1,100 volunteers to put that together. And so I know the interns are a big part of that. So we definitely encourage our interns to participate in that. It's a great way to, volunteer your time, get outside of the office, spend some nice time on a golf course, and, see some professionals and things like that. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, as well as what Vivian mentioned, getting out there and networking outside of their department and their team, getting to know others and getting to know other interns, because, you never know when you run into them again. And it's fun to get to learn about their other experiences as well.
Okay, thank you. And Stacey.
One thing that's not new that I didn't mention, and it's similar to what Tyler and Vivian mentioned, is all of our interns do a 20-minute presentation in front of the president and executive board. And they have to speak about what they learned and what they did in their internship, but they also have to share what they would change in our company. And that's a real eye opener and really creates that curiosity to our executive leaders of a fresh perspective of how people experience merchants bonding companies. So I think that's really valuable. As far as new things, Merchants does just like every other company pretty much. We're doing a lot of training on DE&I. So we do know we want to add some more training or education interaction around that for our interns this summer. And then similar to Vivian, we are going to do the same thing of them doing a learning experience in different departments to see how it all interconnects.
All right, and Sidney.
One of the other groups that I work very closely with is the Young Professional Connection, or YPC as they're known locally. And one of the things that they are looking to do this summer as we kind of shift back into more in-person events is to host events that are welcoming and to invite the interns that are here over the summer. And the idea there is to include the students in socials or networking opportunities that YPC is hosting to really intermingle the students with the young professionals that are already here, that have chosen to come and to build their lives here for, you know, a career move, or maybe they're from here or they're not from here, and to really give those young professionals the opportunity to share their stories, share experiences, make recommendations of cool things to do over the summer, maybe build some of those relationships to hopefully further engage students and to really show them that this is a great place to be as a young adult, and give them more reason to return post-grad. So excited about some of those opportunities and really excited to be able to do them in person.
Thank you, Sidney. So as we have different listeners on the call today, and those that may be able to have a chance to watch it later, you know, you all have had this experience of working in these programs for the last few years and beyond for your particular organizations. What are some recommendations you would make to other employers looking to engage in similar strategies with college students? You know, talk, you know, more about what you talked about, Stacey, like having to bring in a particular person to engage, overall costs. You know, Vivian, you said you all have been in this for over 20 years. What are just some things you all could recommend and give some insights into those looking to either start or even just, you know, revamp and rethink how they're doing their programs? And we'll start with you, Vivian.
Yeah, well, you know, our program has evolved over time, but I would just recommend, you know, if you're thinking about it at all, don't hesitate, just do it. There's nothing bad that can come from the internship program. It's investing in our future, in our community. The more programs we have out there, the more students we can bring into the Des Moines area, and help to develop them and help to train them for our future talent. You know, we budget about 80 to 90,000 each year, but that's also because we have 11 interns each year. I think if you want to do it, you can still start small. Just, you know, take your time building a good strategy and just make it fun and meaningful. It doesn't have to be just another summer job for an intern. You know, it can be a really meaningful experience.
Thank you, Vivian. And Tyler.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what Vivian said, is making fun and meaningful. I think that's really important for the interns, so they have something to talk about. You know, something that a lot of our interns currently, they mention like, oh, my friend worked at principal, internet principal. They really enjoyed it, so I knew I wanted to apply. And I think you had to consider the capacity that your team has in hosting an internship program and not overdoing it. And again, offer programming and networking events for the interns. I know the interns really enjoy getting to know people outside of their team, as I've mentioned a couple of times, as well as getting to meet with, you know, the C-level executives. I think a lot of interns don't think that that's a possibility, but I know our C-level interns, like our C-level execs, we have to tell them no sometimes because we don't have enough time to have them all speak to them. But you know, as Vivian mentioned, they get nervous talking to Dan Houston, but as soon as one person asks that question, it just keeps going, and we have to cut it short because they run out of time. So, you know, get them exposed to executive senior leaders. So it's an opportunity for them to see where they could be one day.
Thank you, Tyler. And Stacey.
I think right now the biggest selling point is everyone's struggling for talent. And what a cheap way, and I'm saying cheap way, to experience talent and see if that person can grow and develop with your organization. So I think financially it's a no-brainer. I think a couple pieces of advice is interns want to engage with other people, want to engage with other interns. So if you're just starting out, maybe you're only going to hire 1 or 2 interns, I would strongly recommend partnering with the chamber so they can get to know other interns, maybe at other organizations, because that's very important to them, is having that network group. And then finally, I would say, as you're designing it, is look at your company values. Our program, and I'm sure it's the same with Tyler and Vivian, our program of the volunteering and the having fun and the events, it's all tied to our values. And we're looking for someone to hire. That's the ultimate goal. So we don't want to just bring someone in and not them experience the full aspect of merchants. So, build that into the program.
Thank you. And Sidney.
I would echo what everybody said. I think it's also really important to remember that this is as much about them trying you out as you trying them out. And so this is really an experience for both sides of the table, and to really keep that in mind, regular check-ins to really see how they're doing and do those evaluations and things like that. This is the best way to show off your workplace to some of those future talent. And so really invest and do that intentionally.
Thank you. So as we think about the college students themselves, and for some of those that may be watching, or again, some insights you can provide to your peers, what do you think college students should be thinking about to be successful in programs like your own? And we'll start with Vivian.
Whenever I talk to students at career fairs or during interviews, they always ask me, what we're looking for in an intern. And I always just say that we're looking for someone who's open-minded. Stay open to all of the experiences and activities you're going to be a part of. Stay open to different areas that you might not be aware of. We usually have 11 interns each year, like I mentioned earlier, but about 85% of them are finance or accounting majors, and we can't all place them in the finance department. So then we look to match them with an area that is related to some of their other interests. But then sometimes we do get finance students who really only want to be in the finance department. But the experience is much more than that. There are a lot of paths that someone can take with a finance major, and the bank has many departments that can give them a fantastic insight into those other options.
Thank you. And Tyler.
Yeah, I think one of the things is, how do you stand out from other students when you're applying? We get 3,000 to 5,000 applications every year for internships, and we have over 200 openings. And so it's important that to help to make sure that you are, helping stand out. And how do you do that? That's the question. And so for us, we do have a GPA requirement depending on the role. Either it's 2.8 or 3.0, depending on what position you're applying for. So that's something to consider, as well as, your involvement. We look at your involvement. So are you involved on campus? Are you doing more than just being a general member? And what experiences do you have already that could translate into working at Principal as an intern? Because our interns are doing real work. And so in helping the enterprise as a whole, reach our goals. And so do you have experiences that could maybe not directly, you're not doing directly the work, but how can you translate what you've been doing on campus or in the classroom into working for Principal?
Thank you, Tyler. And Stacey.
Similar to Tyler, having good grades and having the degree is not enough. It's what have you done beyond that? And it can be a lot of different things, whether it's jobs, experiences, clubs, but that is very important to us. I think another thing for interns to really be thinking about is, they have an abundance of companies they can choose from. And it's not just about us finding a position, but for them to find a home after graduation and where they want to be. So I think it's really important for them to really look at the culture, look at the work environment, what fits them. Companies are different, and it's really finding what best connects with them that I think is really important, and probably not enough questions asked around that.
Thank you. And Sidney.
I would echo what Stacey said, and I think that it's important for students to really have a vision of what they're looking for, and maybe that's outside of the specific career, but more of what are their values and what kind of company they want to look for, and how do they figure that out, whether that's doing some research prior to talking to you at a career fair or asking those really intentional questions. But I think that it's a good starting place, and that will lead you down some interesting paths and open some doors through conversations with individuals within those companies.
Thank you. So as we'll be transitioning here to question and answer soon, for those that are watching live here on the call today, if you have any questions, please feel free to start dropping those questions into the chat, and we'll start to move into that. But to my panelists, I want to give you all a chance here before we get into the questions and answers. If there's one main piece of advice or some sort of insight that you just want to make sure that you really stress and get across to our employers and just even college students watching, what if you don't mind sharing, just to kind of let people know exactly what you all have experienced from your own time dealing with these programs, and just really want to make sure that you drive home to our audience today. So we'll start with Vivian on that one.
I probably mentioned this a few times, but I think, just if you're going to do the program, make sure that it's fun and meaningful. I think there are some stereotypical ideas that students have about internship programs, especially if they have never participated in an internship program before. It might be something like getting coffee or, printing reports and things like that. So really, when you talk to them at career fairs or making phone calls, really explore what your program is about so that they don't have that idea coming in. I think I read an article last night about Generation Zers, and they really care about social justice issues these days and values that companies have in their mission. And so I think exploring that with them while you're talking with them can really sell your program and your company.
Thank you, Vivian. Tyler.
Yeah, so for employers, I think it's really important to have great training for your intern leaders. Sometimes leaders have not have interns before, or maybe have never had to lead before. And so I think having really great training for them so they're prepared to be the best leader they can to the intern is really important. And then for students, something that Sidney and Stacey have mentioned is, you're interviewing the company as much as they're interviewing you. And so really embrace and indulge yourself into the organization that you're interning at, and really see if you can see yourself being an employee there for a longer period of time, and as well as the city that you're in, especially in Des Moines. Some people may have never visited Des Moines before, been to Des Moines, or been to the Midwest, or know what Iowa is. And so can you see yourself living in that environment? And I think that's really important, because as a student, being in college, you don't really think about the college town that you're in. And as an employee, sometimes you get passed over being in that city. And so really experience the city that you're in as well.
Thank you, Tyler. And Stacey.
And we're at the point that we have 5 generations of employees in a work environment. And the traditional student is 20 some. And I think one thing I would recommend is not going into it thinking my time is going to be absorbed with training and helping this intern all summer, but more trying to flip the coin of how can I open up opportunities for them to be curious, for them to ask questions that question us. Why do we do it that way? Well, why do we do this? Well, how come that? That lets us elevate ourselves to really think about our processes and how we do business, and us learn from them. I think it's a preconceived notion that they're just going to learn from us, and that it really can be reciprocated. So I think going in with that. If you don't mind, Tyler made me think of something when you're talking about the leaders. One thing I haven't mentioned is one thing that we do is associates that are right on the verge of getting that point of being promoted to a leader, many times they are the leader for the interns. It's a great way for them to practice some of the skills and development we've been giving those soon to be new leaders. So we've used it as a training platform for our upcoming leaders.
Thank you, Stacey. And Sidney.
I would echo what has already been said. And I think it's just really important to think about it as not just about the actual job. This is an opportunity for students to get engaged and for your other employees to engage with students, but also think about once they're done with their internship and they go back to school and they talk to their friends. And if they've had a good time, they're telling everybody. And if they've not had a good time, they're still telling everyone. And so those students are really your best way of advertising opportunities that you have, things that you have going on. And I think that that is really valuable because students listen to each other and they're talking about it constantly, whether they're on the job or not. So really just making that experience about more than just the job, engaging them, continuing to engage them, and making sure you're having a good time.
Thank you, Sidney.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question from the audience, and their question is, what advice would you have for a student who's trying to evaluate from the outside an internship program? What are some good questions they should be asking you all to see if this is the program for them? And we'll start with Tyler.
Yeah, first thing that comes to mind for me is, maybe the size of the internship program will impact, if they decide to intern with you. We offer different size internship programs, and it's kind of the same when you're looking at a university, the different sizes. And so for us, we're a large program, and we offer, personalized experiences, but, Vivian with 11 interns, they may want something more personalized than what we're offering. And so that's something to consider, as well as, ask what about your internship stands out from the others. What offerings are unique compared to other internships that they're looking at, I think is important.
All right, and Vivian.
I always have a lot of students who say, they're interested in Bankers Trust because of our community service work that we usually do. So I would say, as a student, ask that company, what are your values? What have you done to help work towards those values? I mentioned earlier, a lot of Generation Z, they're very interested, and they care very much about social justice issues, diversity, equity, inclusion. So if those are any of your values, ask questions focused on that, and that'll tell you a lot about the company.
Thank you. And Stacey.
I think for starters, one suggestion I would have is go on their website. It kind of goes back a little bit to what Vivian's saying. Go to their website and see what they find important will be on their website. So it's a good starter point to see kind of where their values are, what their focus is as a culture and organization, and ask questions from that. And one, see if it matches up with your values, but I think you can ask questions from that. But, I would flip it back. They probably ask you questions about, your strengths and what you can bring to the company and the internship program, and where your weaknesses are. Flip the question back on them. What do you what are the strengths of your program that you've heard from other interns, and where there's still gaps in your internship program? So
Thank you. And Sidney.
I, as part of my position, also travel and spend quite a bit of time at career fairs talking to students about opportunities here. And that talk to a lot of first and second year students who are interested in an internship, but they have no idea what they want. They just know that they'd like to have one. They want to have it on their resume because they know that experience is really valuable down the road, but they've got no clue what they're doing in the meantime. And so I think as they're asking questions, and especially for the younger students, ask questions about whether you can try out different things, and maybe your day-to-day will be a finance geared internship position, but if you're also interested in maybe some IT things or something like that, just ask. and see if that would be a possibility as just like a side gig or a passion project or something like that, to kind of try out some other things while you're working that summer. And that really broadens your experience. It can be super beneficial to a company, and also just lets you try out some different things and see if you like it and if it's a good fit for you. But that's something that you'll never know about if you don't ask.
And thank you, Sidney. And remember, if you all have a question, please drop it in the chat. And so, Sidney, as you were talking, you kind of reminded me too, just to make sure that the audience understands. Sidney is our new Director of Education and Talent Programs here at the Partnership, as we continue to really show that we're dedicated to this talent issue and prioritize here at the Partnership. Sidney brings a lot of expertise, as he talked about, coming off of the road and really traveling around the country and engaging students across the area. And so, Sidney, if you could just kind of remind the audience, what are the programs that you manage here at the Partnership and provide as resources for all of our investors and members?
Yeah, so I've mentioned a few times the DSM Intern Connection, which is the summer programming series. And I love that program because I love the energy that interns and college age students bring to it. But I think it's also just a lot of fun because it's a way for them to engage and meet interns at other companies. So a lot of companies are really great at providing those opportunities internally, but if you're working for a smaller company, you might not have that opportunity. And so we're going to do that. So that's a big one that happens every summer. Really excited to get back to that one this summer. The Young Professional Connection is another great opportunity for the young professionals here in the Metro. And we welcome interns into that as well when they're here. And sometimes companies offer internship experiences that are outside the normal summer hours. And so YPC offers a great opportunity for those students to get involved and get plugged in the community as well. And then the DSM Fellowship Program, we mentioned briefly, is a 2-year leadership cohort for young professionals that have been selected by their company to participate in. And it's a great way to provide some professional development, learning opportunities, some leadership opportunities, business trainings, things like that, and to really build a cohort that's connected to each other, that's engaged with the community, and to really enhance and encourage some of those skills in them. So they all kind of feed into each other really well. They're all focused on the young adult demographic, which is a really exciting age group to work with, and is a group that we're seeing continue to grow here in Des Moines. So excited about those populations.
Thank you, Sidney. And for those looking to figure out how to connect to the DSM Intern Connect and our DSM Fellowship Program at YPC, please feel free to reach Sidney Pezley at any time. She's available to help you match up all your students and needs to make sure that your programs are successful as well. We have another question from the audience. What potential gaps might exist in your programs that outside organizations could help to fill? And how can we help best prepare students to be successful future interns and employees for you? So again, what potential gaps might exist in your programs that outside organizations could help to fill? And how can we help best prepare students to be successful future interns and employees for you? And we'll start with Stacey.
The first thing that comes to mind is, we're a smaller company, and that may be the case for several of you. We're not a principal that everyone knows the name, or even Bankers Trust. Everyone knows your names. When Tyler said what was like 3 to 5 resumes, I'm a little jealous. But I guess a gap is, how do we get students to recognize smaller companies that can have just as much of a wonderful experience and maybe not be the big company name that they're more familiar with? How to fully solve that gap, I don't know, but I would love students to more know about other companies. We're always educating them probably more on our companies or on our company. How can they best help prepare students for success? I'll probably, that's a tough one. Anything different we haven't already shared? I think it's just more making sure that they're going in, even if they don't know what they want, going into an internship interview prepared to interview us too. I don't think enough, I can't remember who said that earlier. I don't think enough do that. They just want they want an internship. They want to put it on their resume. How can they really try to interview us too?
Thank you, Stacey. Tyler.
Yeah, I think for us, a potential gap that we have been seeing is a lot of our interns we found out are outside of Des Moines and outside the state of Iowa. And so that's something that, has been, a challenge for us as to how do we showcase Des Moines. And, Sidney and the Des Moines Partnership has been a great partner in that and letting them know what's happening outside of Des Moines. I think leveraging current interns or interns that are familiar with the Des Moines area and having them, go out on their own and explore Des Moines. There's only so much we can do as an organization to, tell them, hey, the farmers market, got to do that. The Adventureland, the art festival in the summer. There's a lot of things happening, but it's been a challenge to get interns to go actually do them. And so I think for us partnering with the Greater Des Moines Partnership, as well as other interns that have maybe been in Des Moines before, and making sure they are taking the time to spend time with each other outside of work, I think is really great. And so how to best prepare, I think a lot of it's already been talked about that Stacey mentioned. But yeah, there's nothing right now that comes to mind that hasn't already been mentioned.
Thank you, Tyler and Vivian.